Two. Hi, everybody. Bill Davis here with the Titans of Publishing show, and this is my cohort, Marc Harty. Say hi, Marc.
Hey everybody, happy Friday.
Hey. And today we wanted to talk about, and we're going to do this in hushed tones because these are email secrets. Did you hear that? Email secrets, or email marketing secrets, let me say. So I'm going to let Marc take it away after I've exhausted all of my comedic talent today.
Oh, come on. You're selling yourself short.
All
One of
right.
those improv skills that I know and love.
Yeah, yeah. They're usually beer induced. So today we actually want to talk about email marketing and why it's still important, why it's still relevant, why it's not dead, and how to maybe do a few things that you didn't know how to do. And that's what the secrets are, really. And we might also get into a rant or a pet peeve or two. So
We've got to. I mean, what would our show be without, hey, this really chaps my hide, or
that's
whatever other metaphor you'd like to use. G-rated or otherwise.
Yeah, we should put a disclaimer. This show is mostly G-rated, but sometimes a little of the
Some,
NR comes out.
we get carried away.
All right. So why don't you talk about yeah, just take it away.
Okay, so the title of this is Email Secrets, and Titans of Publishing. What are we talking about in terms of publishing? Well, our kind of frame that we put on things is always be publishing, and not just books. You could be publishing blog posts. Well, hey, if you are writing an email, particularly if you have an email list, or maybe you're working with a client and you're writing emails, guess what? You're publishing. You're just publishing emails.
Yep.
So, I have been doing email marketing since, for myself, for my own business. I launched my first online product in 2003.
Mm.
And my whole product was set up and at that time it was e-courses. Remember e-courses? It was like, hey, 21 tips on getting traffic to your website. And it was all free. Or you could pay if you wanted to get all the tips at once. So it was good for its time, and it worked.
Yeah.
So let's get into secrets. And I realize some of these, this is a disclaimer. Some of these may be more advanced techniques, because both Bill and I are advanced marketers. But I'm sure there's some that kind of reach kind of a cross section of people that have some understanding about email. So I'll start with just a real simple one, and that is consumption theory. I don't know why people, and this works for email or any other kinds of publishing, I don't know why people have such long paragraphs. I don't know why people have such long sentences. Everybody today has some level of ADD. Why do you want to make it so difficult for people to absorb and consume what you're trying to communicate or share with them? So I just have a rule of thumb. I don't like any paragraph to go longer than 4 sentences. In terms of sentence length, I think the latest statistic showed the average person has like a 6th grade, education level. But I mean, I'm not talking about dumbing down copy. Look at Hemingway. Look how short his sentences were. I mean, Bill, isn't there something online like Hemingway Writer where you can actually emulate a little bit how Hemingway writes?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't use the app, but growing up, I was kind of I had a bittersweet relationship with Ernest Hemingway.
I think
And
we all
Scott
did.
Fitzgerald and a few other guys, but they really, the point is you want people to be able to read your emails, and it comes down to just it is consumption theory, and it's how to get more people to read your emails. And they tell you to write it, I don't know, what do they tell you, 4th, 5th, 6th grade level. I don't take it to that extreme, I just write in very short sentences. I don't use
Yeah,
words. In fact, most of my paragraphs are sentences. They're one or two sentences at the most. And I subscribe to the theory, and it's really just copywriting in an email, medium. Um, it's every sentence leads to the next one. Um,
exactly,
so
exactly.
yeah, I think people get lost. I mean, I'm in information overload all the time, and when I have to read something that's more than a few paragraphs long, I actually have to set aside time to do it, and I don't
Yeah.
have time for that. Email should really be quick, easy, to the point. Um, I know there are people who do it really well and write long form copy in emails, but um, I'd be
What
surprised to see if their read through rate was really good, but we'll see.
and this is maybe going over to pet peeve category. If any of you are attorneys or you work with attorneys, um, good luck. Because think about it, attorneys are used to writing, entire pages that are one paragraph. I've seen attorneys write, like a half a page and it's all one sentence. Now, obviously, that's the legal document. It's not marketing, but I mean, you do have to match your audience.
Well,
Uh,
I think on the one hand, though, Mark, lawyers really don't want you to read their material. They would
hey,
rather you gloss over it and then they catch you on a technicality later. I mean, I'm serious.
uh,
Read a EULA for software. Nobody does, but if you do, your eyes gloss over and you start to go comatose. Um, and you
speak,
just click the button anyway.
and speaking of eyes, I noticed. I don't know, Bill, if one of us wants to handle questions. Olivier or Olivier Blanchard. I'm probably butchering the name. We've connected on some political topics. He looks like he's had some questions and comments and talked about Fitzgerald. So thank you for joining us today. We kind of like to do these on Fridays when maybe people have a little bit of time to catch their breath and have some space. So it's perfect. Thank you. I'm reading the comments. So here's some other tips that I've learned. And a lot of this you can take over to other types of copy that are very short. I like to do subject lines that have a question. I read and I think it still applies, is that when you add a question, you create some conflict in the viewer or the reader's mind, and they're compelled to read on because they want that conflict resolved.
Yeah.
So, for example, I sent out, both Bill and I do affiliate marketing from time to time, and I sent out an email. I was promoting an email swipe file collection of emails, and I ended the subject line, only this much, question mark. I didn't say what the dollar amount was because I felt like, well, if I did that, maybe I'd be limiting the audience, and I wanted to be a little bit more, not so much blind, but just a little bit more curious. So, but that has worked for me with ads, with pay-per-click ads, is having, a question mark. It's worked with me. I work with it. It's worked for me in other kind of short media type formats. So I'm kind of curious, Bill, have you ever tested that question mark in terms of performance and results?
Yeah. I think it works really well, actually. And I've even done it where it's kind of been a cliffhanger where I, you know, I ask the question, I basically build a story that asks a question and then drop it until the next time I email. And it's usually every day, so I don't leave people hanging too long. But I found that actually helps you get your next email open rate up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and another thing, and this is, I don't know if this is a secret, and this is not, it's kind of an offshoot of what we're talking about. But one of the things that I found very, very beneficial is when you send out an email, in any email service provider is going to provide you statistics, open rates and click-through rates and stuff like that. Um, what I found very interesting is send an email today and find out who didn't open it, and then email those people in a subsequent email. And you'll wind up in, open rates are different across all different industries, different genres and whatnot, but let's just say your typical open rate is 30%. You can bump that up to about 45%. You can actually bump it up about another 50%. So 30% plus 15%, which is 50% of the 30. You can bump it up another 50% just by sending it out to people who didn't open it the first time. Also along the lines that you were just talking about, think of the tweet universe or the Twitter universe, where you have
Yes.
140 characters to make a point. And I'm going to alienate half the people who might watch this by saying, I think Donald Trump's really good at tweets. He gets his point across. Now his point usually doesn't jive with my way of thinking, but he gets his point across. He gets his point across very well, and his supporters gobble that shit up. And he's got 140 characters. So
There you go. Well, you mentioned, and that was actually one of my tips is, and I just did that with a promotional email, where, I use a program which probably a lot of people are familiar with, Aweber, and I have like 33 different lists, that, different products, different, events that people that saw me and stuff. And I sent out, just like you said, I sent out one email. And then I looked at who didn't open the email from all those lists. I created a separate segment, and then I emailed to that segment, and I got some additional sales. So, yes, that I love that technique. That's a really
if you don't
advanced.
don't do that and you're selling something, whether it's an affiliate product or your own product or something, you're leaving money on the table because it works every single time. Mark my words, it works every single time. And if you can take it to the next, logical extension, right? If you send it out twice and you wound up getting 50% of the people to open, net 50%, if you send it again, you might get another 10%, or you might bump that up to 60%. What does that amount to in extra sales or clicks or whatever it is whatever you're driving for? It's a big deal.
Well,
And it requires almost no effort.
As you were talking, I was reminded, of course, the numbers have probably changed, but my background is in advertising marketing. I worked for ad agencies for years. I have my own agency, and we used to have this expression, and who knows? I don't know who was the originator. Maybe it was David Ogilvy. You have to run an ad 6 times to be seen once. Simply because of the clutter, simply because of the environment, simply because people have other, they're not waiting breathlessly for your ad to appear. The other thing that strikes me about that kind of technique is you're actually being respectful to the people on your list. Because think about it, if you just email to the people, just as kind of a broadcast, people that have already opened it, you're like, hey, I just read this email. Why are you sending me the exact same thing? So it's a way to kind of honor those that opened it and kind of try to pull people that didn't kind of back into the communication.
True, very true. And that's a great point. That's a very good point. You were also talking about, and we had a question here also about matching your voice and your style and your tempo and your email, that kind of thing, to your audience. And in a way that I found that kind of bridges that gap, because you get people who love to consume a ton of information on your lists. You get people who just want to get straight to the point. So what I've done, and it's proven very successful for me, is I'll basically write an email that has, in the first line or two, a cut to the chase statement.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
yes.
Basically here's a very very shortened version of what I'm going to talk about, and then I go on to tell a story. So if you're one of the types of people who today don't have a lot of time, or B, just don't want to read my stuff. But you find it valuable enough to remain a subscriber, you can click on the link or do the action that I'm about to get to. And then for people who actually like to read, marketing type stuff, they read the whole thing, and there's a link at the bottom. And you have to sprinkle links throughout. It's just like a sales page. An email's like a sales page. And even if you're not selling anything, you're selling something. You're attempting to get people to take an action. I rarely have an email that I send out where I don't want somebody to do something. So yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because I've seen different schools of thought, and I haven't really kept up on marketing statistics. And that is, what's your feeling in terms of how you format your email? And let me just kind of lay out the scenario and get your feedback. There are some people that, I want to make it like it's coming from a friend, from a colleague. I don't want to make it all slick and have graphics and have formatting and have all this stuff because it looks like advertising. I want to build rapport. I want to build a relationship. So I'm going to make it just like you would receive an email from a friend. So that's kind of one school of thought. Another school of thought is, well, we do want to have some level of sophistication, to kind of differentiate us, maybe have some branding and some other elements. Me personally, I kind of do a hybrid where I will format some things, but I won't go nuts. So what are your thoughts?
So yeah, let's we'll answer the question in a minute, but my thoughts are, and this may require extra work, and I'm just making the suggestion because I don't do it. I'm a little lazy. I send out text-based emails that are very simple, easy to read, quick to read. I have sent beautifully formatted newsletter, glossy type color and HTML. The open rates actually were way worse. But you can't read too much into that because I didn't do a true like A/B test. What I found was, maybe my subscribers were conditioned to see my text only emails, and when they saw these flashy ones, maybe it didn't even get delivered. B, maybe they saw it and they went, oh shit, this is too much for me. I don't know, and I never really went down the path. But when I went back to text, the open rates went up again. So I think maybe there's some probability that my subscribers are either conditioned or they like the text only stuff to begin with. But I've seen some really beautiful HTML type emails, and they're really nice, and I do read them. So the kind of the hybrid method that you talked about, which I think could work really good, but it requires more time, and that is essentially you make either an HTML or a PDF beautifully formatted in like a traditional mail order type or mail order style type newsletter, that you could print out and deliver, or that the recipient could print out and read, and then take the salient points, put those in a text email with a link to the PDF, so that you get the best of both worlds. Your readers can either read the text, or they can read, they could print out or read the beautifully formatted thing. That takes more time, but I think that's actually an asset that you could use later, as well, to sell, because people are, the perceived value of something that, if you were to print those color newsletters out and send them to, let's just say, a select segment of your email list, that would be a really nice thing to have. It would be a bonus, an unexpected bonus that people would get, that would let them know that, hey, I really, really value and appreciate you being a subscriber or a member or a follower, or whatever you want to call it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And can you do me a favor? A couple questions came in.
Yeah.
Can you take a look at those real quick, and I can just kind of follow up with a couple couple of thoughts before I lose them. Um, you know, based on what you just shared, I think it does. I mean, I think it's, the answer is test it, just like you did. You tested, and for your audience, for the people that you were kind of your tribe, the text email worked better. If you're, working for clients, or, a certain level of sophistication, maybe it's a more corporate, more business-like, then yeah, maybe an HTML or formatted email makes sense. But yeah, you should test it. I have another secret that I want to share, and then I think maybe we should kind of shift to pet peeves. As I mentioned before, I use Aweber, and I was kind of curious because I was writing an email. I didn't want to write from scratch, and I was like, I seem to recall writing a similar email before, and I thought I kept an archive of certain emails, and I was looking around, and I don't know about you, but if I have to look for something for more than 10 minutes, I set the clock. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to find it. I'll punt and move on.
Yeah.
And I forgot, and I assume that all email platforms have this feature. I'm talking about Aweber because, hey, that's what I use, or that's, the primary one I use. Aweber has a feature where it basically puts an online archive of every broadcast email you've sent. So
Yeah.
I opened that archive, and I got two immediate takeaways. Number one, I found the email very easily. I saw every email that I had done for every audience, for the last 7 years. And I
Yeah.
started looking down month by month by month, and I'm like, why did I, I had a certain level of frequency. Why did I go down that month? And so that was a lesson learned. And so I basically set myself a goal that said every month I want to send out X number of emails. So that's just kind of a tip that, it was kind of a Simpsons moment, where it's like I knew it was there, I just forgot about it.
Yeah. Two things about that. Number one, if you find yourself ever in want of, hey, I don't have anything to write, or I don't feel inspired today, so I'm just not going to email, you can always use an old email and send it out again. Because odds are, let's say again, your open rate is 30%. That means 70% didn't read it the first time around. If you reuse it a year or two later, I, for one, if I got an email that I read a year ago, I might have a recollection that I read this at some point before, but I would still read it. Odds are I would read it again if I opened it the first time. And also in Aweber, at least, what I do, because I don't want to go through all the formatting and stuff again, I just take an email that I used yesterday,
And just
and
copy it.
I just copy it into drafts, and I'm off to the races. So that's that. So we had a question. Why are so many, and this applies to emails, sales pages, etc. Why are so many promotional emails for events, webinars, online programs, etc. endless scrolling sales pitches? The pitch keeps going and going and going. Not so much storytelling as mind-numbing repetition. This is a pet peeve of mine too. What's the reasoning behind that when it seems that short, succinct emails would be more effective? What am I missing? You want to take that one, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, that definitely goes into pet peeve. I have seen, and I will admit, this is also confessions. I mean, there have been emails that I've written that have been longer. I try to format it so even if people are scanning, they can kind of extract the nuggets. But I have seen a lot of emails that it's like verbal diarrhea. They're just spewing. They're just and marketers are not stupid people. They must have, and again, maybe it's their audience. Maybe there's something about that they feel they have to do that. If I'm going to call people, I'm going to say, you know what? Maybe it's lazy, because think about this. If you were planning, if you said, you know what, I'm going to send out this email today, we're doing it on Friday. Say I'm going to send out an email on Tuesday. What if I write it on Sunday or Monday. I step away from it. I come back again, either the day I'm going to send it out or the night before, and I say, you know what? How can I tighten it up? How can I make it better? How can I say the same thing and cut it by a third, or whatever the case may be? I think part of it is, people are just scrambling. I'm not making excuses because, I've kind of done the same thing, but it seems like a little bit more planning and a little bit more thought would probably result in a better product. So that's kind of one response. And then, you know what? Here's the thing. It kind of goes like with sales letters. People do hate them, but for certain audiences and for certain people, particularly detail people, there are kind of two different types of people. There are big picture people, and there are detail oriented people. The big picture people, if they see a long, kind of stream of copy, they'll tune out. And just like like what you did with here's the salient point right up top. It's like where's the executive summary? But for detailed people, they really need that information.
Right.
So maybe you can maybe there's an opportunity to do a survey and say what type of email will serve you best. Something that's detailed, lays out all the facts. Something that's short and sweet. You can click and go get. And that's the other idea too is. Why do you have to tell the whole story? Tell enough of the story. If you're selling an event, tell enough of the story, make them, and then go to the website. I mean, that seems kind of,
Yeah, I kind of like Neil Patel's. He has this email template and you can see it in action if you just subscribe to his list.
Oh, he's great.
Basically, he says, "Hey, I wrote another post. It's about this. Here's the link." And then he gives you like a paragraph, a very small paragraph about, what's important. And then he gives you the link again, and he basically says bye. And I think that's really important, really effective, because it's going to get people to your website where you can do a lot more. You can have buttons and bullets and a lot prettier look, or you can actually have an order button there, that kind of thing. But getting back to the point of these long ass, letters and emails. I think the copywriting world said, hey, this worked once and it proved to be $1 million winner, so let's just keep doing it. And everybody's like kind of in that group think, and they don't really think critically about what's going to work and what doesn't. I've seen really short. Hell, I've seen emails that send you straight to a PayPal page that work really, really well. So they didn't even need a sales page, and they needed like 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, and I'm talking short, choppy sentences to sell the whole thing, because you know what it is, you want it, it's a good value. The bottom line is, if the offer is good, you don't need a lot of stuff behind it. But also, in tandem to what you said, Mark, it seems, well, it doesn't seem, I mean, it makes sense that the more complex or expensive or whatever, the bigger the idea, the more you got to sell it. And I think there's also some visual cues put into effect here. Like, I'm the type of person who I'll read a headline, I'll scroll down, I'll look at some bullet points, I'll see how much it is. And if I'm still interested, I'll go back up and maybe read a little bit more. But it doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't take a lot to convince me, whether it's good or bad. If it's good or if it's bad, if it's a good choice or a bad choice. But I think different people respond to different visual elements. And some people are going to look at a video. That's why they include a video. Some people are going to look at this paragraph, paragraph 1. I'm kind of one of those. I read the first paragraph, and if it's good enough, I may keep reading. If it's not good enough, I won't. But maybe they'll repeat kind of the same point in the 5th paragraph because it's right underneath the video. I'm sure there's all sorts of reasons. It does annoy the hell out of me, but I've learned over time to basically ignore the stuff that I don't care about. And if I ever need to me, a sales page, I guess if you're going to err on the side of one way or the other, it would be, let's put too much up there and people can choose not to consume it. rather than not putting enough and then having a bunch of questions or objections that I haven't met because it's a sales page. It's not a one-on-one sales process where I can ask you a question and you could reply with, "Hey, this is why we did it that way." I, it's really a one-way mechanism, and you're trying to cover all your, you're basically trying to cover all the points. But I agree. A lot of people don't need that, but a lot of people do.
Well,
Way of saying,
2 points, and then I got a couple of pet peeves, and we should probably wrap up.
yeah, this is
Uh, so, as you know, as I was listening, I was reminded, and this is going old school. This is going back to, oh man, one of my ad agency jobs years and years ago, and I was working in an ad agency in Baltimore, and there was a retailer, a brick and mortar retailer, and I don't know the whole story, but basically, this retailer would do a full page newspaper ad that was totally handwritten, including mistakes. They'd write something and they'd cross it out and stuff. And you would look at this and because me, Mr. Advertising, Mr. Branding expert, my God, the horror of it. I mean, this looks childish.
yeah.
That type of ad ran for like 15, 20 years. That was that company's brand. It fit their persona. It was like, hey, you're going to get a deal. We don't have time for fancy advertising. Maybe it was a gimmick. I don't know. It worked. So would it have worked for Macy's? Would it have worked for any, Bloomingdale's? Of course not. But for this particular retailer, it works. So,
Yeah.
marketers aren't stupid. I would imagine, they're looking at their open rates. They're looking at their click-through rates. And if those type of emails weren't working, then they probably wouldn't be doing that. Now, maybe they are. Maybe they're just assuming that they know their audience when they really don't.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of assumptions built into
So,
this stuff.
so let me get to a couple quick pet peeves.
All
And
right.
I know you're going to like these. Okay, now this one, I have clients that are the small to medium sized business, and this always kind of makes my ears perk up, but not in a good way. The client will say, "I need to do an email blast." I'm like, email blast? I mean, that's like early 2000s, late 1990s. I mean, who does blasts anymore? I mean, this is relationship building. This is email segmentation. I don't want to be blasted. I don't think your audience wants to be blasted. And they may just not mean it in the literal sense, but it just shows there's an education process that says you have to really build that relationship. You can't just put something out there and expect people to respond. But I can tell you, I'm still hearing email blast. I don't know if you are.
I hear it. I hear it almost every day.
What are you telling me? You say, I want to.
I'm kind of deaf to it now. I know they're going to say it, so and then we just continue down the path that we were going to go down anyway. Call it blast, call it whatever you want, but this is what we're going to do. Yeah, but yeah, I hear it every day.
Okay.
And it does drive me nuts.
Here's another pet peeve. Now, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. You're not perfect. You make mistakes. People watching and listening to this make mistakes.
Yep.
How many emails have you seen where it's a promotional email and they don't test it? And it's like, oops, sorry, here's the corrected link. I mean,
So let me ask you this: do you think that's real, or do you think that's a gimmick?
That's a good question, and I will answer that with there was a gimmick, and I haven't seen it that much anymore because I've heard you could actually maybe not get banned, but when people would actually put in the RE colon to make it look like there was a dialogue going on when there really wasn't.
Yeah.
Now that was totally a gimmick. I have heard people doing it as a gimmick. But I do think people do it because maybe they're pressed for time. I'm not an English teacher. I'm not holding people up to an unrealistic standard.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I will not send an email out until I test it, and I test all the links.
Yeah.
So I may make other mistakes. I mean, I've tried personalization where I forgot some of the like put people's name in it, and I forgot a certain thing, and it was like dear user.
Yeah.
That's not cool, but that was my mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that 100% of the time that I don't check an email before
There's
I
a
send
mistake.
it out, there's a mistake.
Oops.
100% of the time. Yeah, so I always test it. I always send it to myself. I always read it. Now, I know we're not always our best editors, but I'm just looking for the simple stuff like, oh shit, where's the link? Or oh crap, I put this link in when I meant to put that link in. So I make sure that I put the right link in the right place, that kind of thing. But it's happens every single time. When I don't check it, I'll immediately get an email or 10 that say, "What?" It's like, yeah, you got me. And then I feel like that Claude who, oh, I'm going to send out an email saying, oops, I forgot this. When I know that people are jaded, and I don't know if it's half, but let's just say there's one portion who thinks, yeah, that's all bullshit. You're sending this out twice because you want to make sure that I read it. And there's the other part, whether it's 40% or 10% or 80%. There's the other part who goes, yeah, I get it. You made a mistake and you're sending out a correction. But in any event, I always think that people are going to think, yeah, I'm that guy who, oh, I sent it out twice because I wanted you to read it twice, but I'm lying about why I sent it out the second time, or I sent it out the first time on purpose wrong. Um, yeah, you got to test
Yeah.
yourself, man. Don't look like an idiot.
Well, I have this is a curated pet peeve, but I don't even know if it's a pet peeve. Um, uh, so I couldn't even tell you who it was. I saw somebody on Facebook that they said, "How come every time somebody's promoting an offer?" Now, granted, this is within probably the sphere of internet marketing, kind of a kind of smaller kind of sphere than just kind of traditional online marketing, particularly for business or corporate. But it's like, how come when you're promoting something, it's someone's friend. My good friend, insert name of product creator here has blank. I mean, and their pet peeve was what? Every time everybody that promote is like their good friend. What's going on? What's your thought on that?
I know it's a trick. It may be a sincere trick, but it's a trick to rub off some of that. Basically, I call it marrying up, where you associate yourself with somebody who's got more of a stature, esteem, authority, whatever you want to call it. Um, and you mention them, and then you're associated with them just by the fact that you mentioned them. Like I have a marketing friend. He actually is a friend who does that. I don't want to say all the time, but he does that a lot. He has pictures of him and other marketers like Frank Kern and
Oh
other
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
And it's like, hey, it's me and Frank Kern's selling this thing now. And I wanted to show you it. And it's like, you may have talked to Frank Kern once or maybe 10 times, but you're probably not really his friend. It's like the people I know on Facebook, right? I know you're my friend. You're a real friend. I have real friends who happen to be on Facebook, but most of my friends on Facebook
Well,
are people I've never talked to in real life in anywhere outside of Facebook. So I don't consider them a friend. We could be, but we're not. Like if
well,
I
let
needed
me.
something, would you drop everything you did
Yeah.
and come rescue me? Hell, even my real friends don't do that.
Well, uh, I don't know if I'm going to play devil's advocate. Let me tell you what I do and see if this makes sense. And this, part of it is it goes back to what you were talking about, telling a story. A lot of times, because I do send out a lot of affiliate emails, And I know people get a lot of affiliate emails, and I know a lot of people, and you know how I can tell? Because they don't even bother changing the copy that the creator says, it's like, hey, here's an email swipe, and I look at it and it's like the exact same copy. They don't even customize it for their audience. What I do, and part is I want to differentiate myself that, I never met from these, I never met an offer I didn't like kind of crowd. I'm very selective, and a lot of times because I've been burned, I've not just, I've purchased things from people that it sounded great, and then, with software that wasn't supported. If I have a personal relationship, or if I have any kind of relationship, I did a lot of speaking. If I shared the stage with somebody or whatever, I'm going to mention that because I'm going to say, I know this person. I know, in some cases I may know their family. I know what they stand for. And I know that their level of integrity. Integrity is my highest value. I'm not going to share something unless I feel like I've vetted it to the best of my ability.
But
So
that's
when
the distinction, right? Though you actually
yeah,
know
yeah,
people and you understand what their character is. You know they have integrity. You may have had a photo op with them, but it's more than that, right?
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of times they don't even. So you oftentimes, I admit I've done this too, but it's always been with somebody I actually know and like and trust. That whole thing. Um, and I'm not just trying to sell that thing, right? I'm telling a story about, hey, me and Jason, we did we were on this, we were at this event together and we talked about X, Y, and Z, and hey, we got along, we started talking about this. So I basically tell a story and how that story relates to that thing that maybe I'm pitching. But that's the difference. A lot of guys will say, they'll mention the marketer's name and they'll say, hey, I twisted his arm.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just like
Um,
everybody else.
yeah,
Everybody else
it's
twists. I got the deal extended, or it's only for my subscribers. That's bullshit. And you know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. You can see through that a mile away. Now, once in a while, so the bad part is if you actually do have a relationship with this person and you talk to them and they say, hey, yeah, I'll extend this offer for your subscribers. If you say that, now you look like you're like everybody else, even though you're 100% sincere.
oh yeah. I mean, and that happens all the time. So um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people they're using a template, and they just want to say, here's a new software or some new training program from Joe Blow. It's like, oh, it's from my good friend, it's from my colleague, whatever. But they don't. Here's the thing: they're so eager to get to the offer, they don't provide the context.
Yeah.
Both of our examples provided the context. Now, maybe some people don't need the context, but other people do, and it also makes sense. So yeah. So well, you got anything else? I think we probably went on a little bit longer, but I think we got some good questions, and probably get some more questions when we share this again.
Yeah. No, I think this was good. We could talk about email marketing forever because it ain't
Well,
going away. Um, you know, we hear of the demise of email every couple months. It's not dead yet. It's still the one thing that I use as a medium for communication. I don't really like using the phone. Um, I don't text. Yeah, I look at them, but that doesn't mean I act on them. Everybody
yeah,
says, "Hey, there's a 98% open rate on text." Well, how do you not open them? That's you just it's there. It's right there. I didn't open it. The app did. Um,
that's right.
so it's kind of a baloney statistic, but I still, I'd still rather deal in email because it's asynchronous. It's not real time. I can act when I want to. You can act when you want to. You know, a lot of people believe that, hey, did you get my text? Yeah. What do you want me to do with it? Oh, well, I need you to do X, Y, or Z. Well, you didn't say that. In an email,
Yeah,
I can be more verbose and complete. Like
I agree with you, and I don't know, maybe it's an age thing, because
it is. It is.
yeah, younger people are all about texting. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed our riff on email marketing. It'll probably be the first of many. And we're, I mean, we're learning. I mean, I'll do stuff that I think works, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. That's what's interesting. But it's definitely not dead, and it's evolving just like everything else.
Yep. All right, well, Mark, thank you very much. And everybody, thanks for watching. And of course, as always, the replays, going to be online soon, if not now. These things render really fast. I don't know how they do it, but it's cool. It's magic. And have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.